The podcast that floats down here.
Hello, and welcome back to the podcast that floats down here. I am Melissa, and I will be your host for the final episode of Chapter 3, 6 Phone Calls, 1985. I am joined tonight by our Stephen King fanboy.
Hey, I'm Benji. What's going on?
And our first-time reader.
And I remember being Luke. I think I still am.
Today, we are hitting our final section of Chapter 3, called Bill Denbrough Takes a Time Out. Luke, close out the chapter for us.
Bill lets his wife Audra know that he had to leave back to Maine while having his first drink before breakfast in Fleet, England. Audra notices his hands shaking and
as she
inquires
about the phone call he received 5 minutes prior. Bill goes on wondering if any of the others in his old gang were dealing with a similar conversation in their own lives. A conversation to describe what Derry is and what they did back in that summer years ago. He figures some may try to slip away silently to avoid the conversation. He reviews his scholarship, provided collegiate career in writing class, where he initially felt a bit over his head, and by the end, basically just a writer's wake fest. The writers in his class cannot fathom a writer just wanting to tell a story, or maybe just even make some money, instead of socially analyzing everything. He turns in a short story to his professor titled The Dark, describing a story eerily similar to how Georgie died, though Bill does not recognize the connection. The paper receives enough. Bill decides to send the story out to a magazine, to which he promptly gets accepted for publication. Soon after, Bill drops out of his writing course, not before getting a final jab on the professor about making money. His senior year of college is spent writing a novel, which gets picked up by the first publisher he visits, and this kickstarts his writing career. He ends up marrying a famous, beautiful actress while working as a screenplay writer in Hollywood. Bill asks Audra to describe what she knows about him. She recaps knowing that he grew up in Maine, had a brother that died, and that he saved her from drugs when they first met. She goes on to describe how she appreciates how slow he spoke, that he took his time, and that he often had night terrors, which he wasn't aware of and caused enormous goosebumps to rise on his arms. Bill informs his wife for the first time that his brother had actually been murdered, and goes on to describe Georgie and the boat. He realizes that he never told her because he had not thought of Georgie or Derry in over 20 years, other than reciting their existence as fact. Audra has difficulty believing that the scars on his hand had just resurfaced. They had not been there in the past when the two of them had their palms red. Bill describes a scene where the old gang each forms their blood promise to return to Derry. While they continue talking, Bill's stuttering also resurfaces, which she had no idea of. He's described how he's fought off the stutter over the years. Audra asks for more information, and Bill considers the idea, but wants to put off his own remembering until he's back with the rest of the gang. Bill loved his brother, even though he hadn't thought about Georgie, and Audra asks to go with Bill back to Derry. He refuses, as he does not want to bring her back into the terror, and makes her promise never to go near Derry, and to go on acting as though she does not know anything of his whereabouts. He cannot answer her question about when she will see him again.
So the audiobook of this entire chapter is like 4.5 hours.
No.
I think so.
No, it's only maybe an hour and a half.
No.
Yeah.
It's not.
The whole
For the whole chapter?
Yeah. It's maybe 2 hours.
Let's just point out that Luke thought the chapter ended with Eddie.
Yeah, so I have an explanation for that. So the reason... No, I thought it ended at Ben.
Yeah.
I thought it ended at Ben because
the
the chapter breakdown is different in the Audible audiobook version for some reason. So this is chapters 3, 4, and 5 in my audiobook. But in the Kindle, it's the same as yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so weird. But chapter 3 in mine, which covers Stan, Rich, and Ben, is an hour and 49 minutes. Chapter 4, which covers Eddie and Beverly, is an hour and 37 minutes. So 3 hours, 3+ hours.
Okay.
What do you think about Bill?
Bill Stutter shows back up after the phone call, and it hasn't been present for how many years? I don't know. But yeah, where he just starts to bring it back and everything. And as a kid that had a speech impediment when I was younger, I can definitely relate. Again, going back to what I can relate to, kind of think mine wasn't nearly as bad as his or anything. But it's one of those I can always see every once in a while when like a stutter might start up or a slur or a whatever comes in. I can only imagine how scary that is, getting the news you just got and then just it starting to come back. Something you worked your entire life to slow down and do, but now here it comes again. And it's like, oh, okay, that's creepy.
Well, let's not forget the scars came back.
Yeah,
that was the weirdest thing for sure.
So my question is, did everyone else's stuff come back too? Did all the other scars come back
yeah, and that's
on everybody else's wrist?
I was wondering that, like, because I mentioned in the Ben episode about the H. I don't know.
Right? Yeah, I had that same note for the H. Probably after I read this, I was like, oh, that scar for Ben probably showed up later, like that same day as well, which we had no inkling of, but now I think that's probably pretty true.
And
and let's find it interesting that it was. I'm just going to go with the scars on the wrists for a minute.
mm-hmm.
Stan cut them.
Yes.
Well, they're on their palms, right?
Yeah, on the palms.
Oh,
and in
I thought it was the wrist.
No,
it's the palms. Stan.
Okay.
He basically, Bill goes on to say that Stan acted like he was going to slit his wrist when he did it, which was really funny in a not really funny way, but in a telling way.
Yeah.
That he is the one that ends up slitting his wrists when when the promise actually needs to be fulfilled.
It's like non-foreshadowing. Like
it's a weird, twisted, like
exactly.
back and forth.
Well,
yeah,
along those lines,
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
He did this that we already saw.
Yeah, and
self-fulfilling prophecy.
And along those lines, self-fulfilling prophecy, take it or leave it. I think it's fitting. O.J. Simpson got a mention in this chapter. So just I thought that was a funny little thing that 10 years.
I'm choosing not to comment.
Yeah.
Moving on.
So, all right. I wanted to go into also Bill in college, speaking and thinking the truth, where everything written doesn't have to have some sort of secret meaning. This is, I think, maybe the second or third time I've seen from King does this, where, he talks about a writer that it's not Stephen. No, it's not. But he's in college in a writing class, and he basically makes the exact same point of it doesn't have to be the antisocial of whatever this and that crap. This is a scary fucking monster coming out, and he's gonna kill you. So I just always like when Steven, he does that. He'll slip his own little mentality of, I'm not trying to say that this country is fucked. I'm just saying, watch out for this clown.
Sometimes there's not a deeper meaning.
Yeah.
And I kind of mentioned that in my summary. He gets this scholarship and joins this writer's class or whatever, and he feels a bit, in over his head. And then by the end, he basically just kind of views it as a writer's wank fest. Like, it's just like, oh, these are just writers that are just jerking off about writing. Like, it's not anything to do with the story. It's just trying to be cute for cute's sake.
So I have a related story to this. My first time through of college, I was a theater major. So put whatever you want on that. And my sophomore year, I was in this class with juniors and seniors. And I was just going to get my Bachelor of Arts in theater while they were going for their BFAs, their Bachelor of Fine Arts. So they were obviously much, much more theater than I was. I was like, I just want to be in movies. And they were like, we're going to be actors on the stage.
Count Olaf style.
Profound actors. And I'm like, I want to go be in an action flick and drive a car in a chase scene and that's what I wanted to do. right? I wanted to be like Scarlett Johansson,
Mm-hmm.
who wasn't around when
Jennifer Lawrence.
That's right.
Who
Like, I
also
wanted to
wasn't
do
around.
stuff like that,
Yeah,
'cause that
these are
sounded really-
relevant.
Yeah.
These are relevant
Yeah.
actresses
Like,
or actors.
I wanted to be in movies,
Yeah.
and so I'm sitting in this class with these actors, and they're talking about these profound plays like Ibsen's Dollhouse and all these other plays that I still can't remember. And then I remember and my professor was an actor from New York, and I'm like, okay, this is Missouri, guys. Like, it's Missouri. Come on. I remember them completely ripping apart the show Rent. I like the show Rent. I think it's a good show. I think it's endearing. I think there are good messages. I mean, it's a Broadway show. It was very timely in the moment because it was the late 90s. And they're ripping it apart because so-and-so comes back from the dead. No, he doesn't. He comes to take the curtain call. Because that's what actors do, is like get their accolades because they have to have their. And so I'm sitting here listening to all of these actors talk about how deep and serious these shows have to be and how absolutely terrible the stuff I liked was. And I was like, I'm done with you people. And I was.
Yeah.
I was like, that was it. I don't want to do this anymore because I don't want to be like you.
Yeah, it's that, holier than thou. Like, if you don't understand this, then you have no business even being here, like, attitude, that elitist type attitude where if you're not getting these illusions that we're making, then you just should not be able to participate in what we're talking about. And it's,
right,
like I said, it's just a total wank fest. Like, you're just trying to be cool.
It's not working. FYI.
It's not. I hate that. I hate that mentality. I mean, and I appreciate stories that get deep, and we do podcasts analyzing books. Like I like picking things apart, but I don't like taking it to a level where you're looking at it word, letter by letter. What did he mean by this? I like broad strokes. I like let's talk about the cool stuff. Let's get into some of the overall themes and things like that, but we're not going to sit here and analyze every single thing.
Yeah.
But we're also picking mainstream things. It's like the Academy Awards every year. I tried for several years to watch all of the movies that were nominated for Academy Awards, and quite frankly, to be honest, the older I get, the less elitist I suppose I am. I'm like, I don't like those movies. They're boring. They don't have good endings. Nobody dies in an explosion. Nobody turns into a big green monster. There's no animation at all. You can tell the kind of movies that I'm watching. But, those are the movies that I enjoy watching. I like the big summer blockbusters. I like me a good Pixar movie. You know what I mean?
Well,
why?
hey, my genre will never even get nominated for a movie award. Like I said in the first episode, I'm a horror film fan, and some of the greatest movies of all time have been horror films. I will say that, but that's my opinion. They will never get nominated because blood, guts, gore, and tits.
One fantasy movie, one for best movie of the year. Go Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Woo!
Yeah, with its 7 endings and just, sorry.
That was the best.
There were 9 in the extended version. Let's be clear on that. Only watch the extended version.
Kevin Smith gives the best recreation of the first movie, or of the whole of the whole series.
We're digressing.
Yeah, no, digressing.
My
Anyway,
point is that I think
stay tuned for our Lord of the Rings podcast in a few years.
I will not be joining in that one.
The podcast that shall not pass.
Oh God.
Working title. Working title. Let's keep going
3
here.
3 years, Luke. 3 years.
That's fine.
Okay. So, my point is, it's okay to talk about mainstream things in a way that isn't belittling the mainstream things.
Exactly.
And I think that was sort of Bill's point.
How many people think it's going to be recognized apart from just the movie coming out, or that has recently come out, since this episode's coming out a few months from now?
A few months ago.
I'm saying the movie came out a few months ago because this episode's coming out in a few months.
You're breaking the fourth wall, man. You're breaking the fourth wall. Slow down.
You're killing me, Smalls.
This can be cut. Fine. We'll start.
I like it. Leave it.
Yeah, fine.
Sam, leave it.
Sam, leave it. We'll start here. But the movie coming out, it will not get any respect apart from being, a good adaptation of this, I hope. But I don't think it'll get the respect that it probably deserves, as just a good horror kind of scary,
So you're suggesting the Golden Globes needs, best horror film section?
Yes, a horror thriller. You know, like
Okay.
like given the choice, wouldn't you think 7 would have deserved to get something? I'm
Yes.
getting a strong nod. Yes. So,
Yes.
you know,
That hurts.
so I would throw that in with, the horror film thriller, kind of thing. Throw a dog a bone. These people work tirelessly to make good entertainment movies that is going to
Some
make
of them don't work that hard and they don't make very good entertainment. I'm just saying.
many of them. But the ones that do, they do it well.
Luke, you know how you brought up the point of Bill says sometimes a story is just a story, it doesn't have a deeper meaning?
Right.
Yeah, except that for Bill Denbrough, he actually does have a deeper meaning.
He just doesn't know it.
He just doesn't realize he has a deeper meaning because his story about the young boy conquering the cellar monster.
I like.
Chapter 1, anybody?
Yeah, I like that he himself, or the narrator, calls him out on that. That's a step back narrator perspective at that point, at least.
Yeah.
I think this whole chapter wasn't really from either Audra's or Bill's perspective. It was a little bit in and out, and a third party as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And omniscient as well. And the omniscient narrator in this, calls him out. It's like, if you would have said that story, was based on his younger brother, he wouldn't have gotten it. Like, he wouldn't have realized it because he hadn't, thought of Georgie.
I have an idea that I'm half formulating about why it wasn't so strongly Bill's point of view or Audra's point of view throughout the part of this chapter. And my thought is this. Before Bill, every single one of the Losers Club felt unwhole, like there were things missing. They were sort of broken feeling. Stan was fairly put together, then he killed himself. You know what I mean? But their sort of brokenness was not having kids, but Richie's broken. Ben is broken. He is lonely and like has no connection to people in the world. Eddie is broken.
He fucked.
Beverly is physically and mentally broken. Yeah. She's been broken.
Bill is
right?
normal. He is,
what?
Bill's like normal.
Relatively, yeah.
Bill's normal.
Yeah.
Right. And his relationship with Audra is very healthy.
Yeah.
They're cute. They're adorable.
They're actually in love, and they realize we're in a tough spot, but we've made it work.
And like you can kind of say Stanley was too, except when Bill got the call, he explained it and made her try to understand it, and Stan
Stan shutdown mode, like
right.
he just did.
So
Eddie wanted to explain it. He just was trying. He kept.
But he's so broken, and his relationship is so broken, and his wife is so
right.
broken that it isn't going to work. But these are two whole people who have a very healthy, co-relationship. And so I think the non-narrator, if you will, or the non-point of view, kind of shows that we can
They're
see.
equals.
Yes, there is no point of view. It's their shared understanding.
Yeah,
sure. I think that's completely fair.
Yeah, and I think that kind of
I
ties.
really like them.
Yeah, I did too, and I think it does tie into my next point, or my last point of this. It seemed like him earnestly making her promise to stay in England would be for the best, because he knows, or at least he feels like he knows, something bad's coming, and if she follows him, she's gonna be in danger. And I think that goes to show his leadership, his intuition. That's why you get the feeling from this chapter alone that he is the leader. Because I think every chapter also mentioned Bill.
Every single one.
Yeah, but
in some way.
But they didn't mention the other people, or everyone.
It was sparing. Like it was.
Yeah, like not everybody.
He was the only
mentioned.
consistent mention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So from those steps, you can see the shadows and things of he's a leader. He's the one that everybody's going to be behind.
Speaking to the leaving her in England, I like that, he just doesn't want to bring her into the terror. They're better off if she's just not anywhere around. She just basically asks, well, when will I see you again? And he can't answer her. And he doesn't lie.
Again.
He just can't tell her, so he doesn't. And we're just led to believe that that's, an unspoken understanding between the two, that's just where we're at.
Exactly.
So tie that back into the last episodes where each time it gets a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Right.
They're gone. He just doesn't know. To finish up our thoughts on Bill, we're going to talk about what his passcode is into the Losers Club. So, Ben, how do you get in?
Well, first of all, he's a stutterer like hell. And also, he's got the dead little brother. So those two things kind of made it real. And, oh, let's not forget his parents who don't really give a crap about him. But, yeah, no, I think between the big thing, the stutterer, and the dead brother was a good entry point for him.
All right, well, since this is our last section of Chapter 3, we're going to do our all-over Chapter 3 thoughts. So we're going to start with questions from the new reader. Luke, is there any final thoughts or questions you have about this chapter overall?
I think it's going to be hard for me just to view this as questions only. I think I need to look at this also as kind of a speculation section for me as well, because there are things that I can ask that I guarantee you can't tell me without spoiling anything. So it's going to be more of me maybe throwing out ideas.
Fair enough.
And most likely you'll just shake your head and say, well, good point, or that's dumb. Like, that's going to be about it. So my first thing that I caught, well, not the first thing, but one thing that I did catch was the 4 silver cartwheel coins that Ben Hanscom gives to Ricky Lee for his sons. Ricky Lee reads off the years 1921, 1923, and 1924. It might not be relevant at all, but I guarantee the one coin that Ben gave to Bill Denbrough, or Beverly, was the 1922 coin. I guarantee that's my speculation. Again, it might not be really relevant, but that's something that I caught. It was, hey, you have 4 coins, and you gave, in order, 3 out of the 4 chronologically, and you're missing one of those years. That's just something I caught.
In fairness, I have no recollection of what year or if it's mentioned, so fair point. I'll have to keep an eye on that. Yes.
I do, but I'm choosing not to say things.
Fair enough.
Okay. But do you have any other thoughts? Or is that kind of like the one that stuck out?
That was just one that I again, it's not really like a point. It's more of just something I thought I caught and I thought was interesting, kind of moving forward. I definitely thought it was really interesting that Stanley was the only one that seemed to have any recollection of things that happened before he got the call from Mike. That stood out to me a lot. Like, why, and also along with that, he was the one that basically did this blood promise pact thing. You know, he's the one that cut everyone's hands and acted like he was going to cut his wrists, and then actually did cut his wrists. Like, to me, something like seems to be connecting all of that together. Why he's maybe singled out on being able to retain that knowledge of Derry, and he keeps it. Like, he has those dark moments throughout the section that we see that his wife sees, but can never really penetrate into with him. And I think he's had the knowledge of what happened in Derry the whole time. I think that's something that stood out to me and I think is pretty interesting.
Our next section is questions for the new reader, where Benji and I have our random thoughts that we want to think what Luke's perspective could be going forward. So I'm going to start with one of mine there, Lucifer. You talked about the silver dollars in your sort of things you caught. And in the story, it said Ben didn't remember how, but he knew his life was saved by it, by the other silver dollar. So how do you think Ben's life was saved by that 4th silver dollar?
So my perception of like the supernatural stuff that we've seen so far is so haywire. Like right now, like, it's hard for me to find a theme that's central enough and consistent enough and believable. Like, because everything in this story feels so believable. Everything is so real and well described, and like the relationships, the emotions, the senses, they're all so realistically described. This supernatural element that's going on is just so hard to figure out at this point for me. So I'm gonna put my tinfoil hat on. There it is. And I'm gonna say that they used the coin to redirect a laser beam that was going for his heart. It's terrible. Right. I'm just being outlandish, but I don't really know. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Either that or maybe another one. They derail a trolley and knock it off the tracks, similar to a well-known play.
Okay. My second question for you. Do you think they all remembered the same things as they were remembering these things that had been buried? or do you think that each character remembered different parts?
I think they remembered a majority of the same things, at least from their own perspectives. Say there was something that Henry Bowers did to one of the characters that didn't involve the other characters. Like, I think they got that memory, but, say that wouldn't have affected Beverly, she might not have. But for the overall dealing with Pennywise back in the day or whatever it is, I think they did get all of those same memories. One thing that I thought was interesting along with that was, I think 3 of the different chapters talked about Henry Bowers and Belch Huggins, and the third one, Victor Criss. 2 of them, I know for sure, remember them in different orders. And it was almost like the Henry Bowers was kind of given the prime bully category, tag. But it seemed like one of them, I can't remember who it was, seemed to think that Victor Criss was the one. Like, they had different perceptions of the different bullies.
I think it was Richie Tozier that had the different perspective of Victor Criss.
Victor Criss, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. So like those kind of memories, I think they have different, but the overall plot that will unravel for us as we go, I'm assuming they got all the same points.
All right. So I'm going on to my question they came up with, and this is one of my favorite things just because I like speculations and spoilers, and I won't say if you're right or wrong, but apart from Stan Uris, do you think there will be any other casualties of the losers that we've met so far? And if so, who and why?
I mean, as the reader, I want to say no. Like you want these people to stay around, even if you find them annoying at times or whatever. I mean, you want your characters to stay around, typically.
So you're going to say no, nobody else is going to die?
I'm saying I want to say that.
Okay. You've learned.
Well, I mean, I've read way too much George R. R. Martin to realize that anybody is safe ever.
Thanks, Gurm.
I think, so I'm going to give a number that I think will die. I don't know who and I don't know how, but I'm just going to kind of go with a number that I think will die coming up. So there's 6 that we met, and there's also Mike, who we haven't really met,
yes,
which I find very interesting that he wasn't included in this because he clearly seems to know something else. He's still involved somehow. And I see smiles and things, so that's a good sign. I'm going to go with, I'm going to say out of that 7, I'm going to say 2 die.
Apart from Stan. Or including Stan.
Shoot. Okay, so for the 6 left, I'll say 2 die. So 2 die from here on out.
Okay. All right, but you don't want to go with a who and how or why? It's okay if you say no.
I
okay.
I don't know. It's just guessing. I mean,
I know, but
I don't think Bill's gonna die. I think he's gonna be around for a while.
So Bill is safe.
I think Bill is gonna be on my safe card. Richie, I think he could die. I'm gonna put him on the dead card. Oh, sure. I'll say Ben dies.
Okay.
So
you're going Ben and Richie.
Ben and Richie.
All right.
The 2 characters that I liked the most, I think.
We will make a note of this here, just so we can look forward.
Prediction.
Yeah.
Ben and Richie die. You got it, Ben.
Yeah, I got it.
All right, so let's go in and talk about each of our favorite things in the chapter. So let's start us off. What was your favorite thing in this chapter? If you have to pick one thing.
I know, there were so many. Like, there were so many
good.
really interesting things that happened this chapter with all of the things that we see, first person in these sections. And also, like, a lot of the flashbacks. Like, there were some really... quite a variety of things to choose from. I mean, if we really look at it, there's probably like 20 different scenes easily that we're looking at. I mean, maybe more like 30 or 40 different scenes that we could look at. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go ahead and say I really liked the whole Ben Hanscom drinking, pounding the whiskey stein and having it have basically no effect on him. That was like the thing that really stuck out to me the first time I read through it, which I thought was only the first 3 characters when I first read it for some reason. But yeah, that's the thing that really stood out to me. It was impressive and made me second guess, like, can you do that? Does that work? And apparently there might be some science behind that.
Benji, what was your favorite part?
All right, my favorite part was Eddie finally standing up for himself and going against the mother figure in his life and leaving his wife just hanging, just with her screaming in the background, just. But Harry, I'm so scared. But with that, I know we said he's not our favorite character. We probably our least favorite. That took balls on his part to finally break free from the guilt chain
of the Losers Club.
Finally, of the Losers Club.
Okay. I was gonna say, I think Tom Rogan.
Tom Rogan's
the list of...
our least favorite loser. But yeah, for him finally to step up and just say, you know what, screw it, I gotta go. I'm sorry you're scared. I'm sorry you're worried. I'm out. Good for you. Let's see where you go.
My favorite part is Bill's relationship with his wife. He's the only member of the Losers Club to have a seemingly normal, healthy, adult relationship. And I appreciate that, one of them can do that.
I do give Stan, I will say this, I think Stan and Patty had a fairly normal relationship. It just, until the end.
Well, sort of.
He was withholding a lot of information from her.
He had a lot of things suppressed that he knew were suppressed. Everybody else, I don't think, realized things were suppressed.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. That's fair.
And I don't actually think Stan remembered Derry.
No.
I just think that he knew there was something there.
And I think that's fair. I could see that.
Yeah. I don't think he knew. I think he knew not to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's fair.
He actively was not going there.
Yes. And in general, I just think he didn't stop and talk to her. He didn't think there was no consideration of her when he went and committed suicide. Like with Bill, it was about how it's going to affect Audra. It was an us think instead of a me think.
No, definitely. I get that. I absolutely agree with that.
Because if you're in a true, I just think a strong marriage to me is when you think in terms of us. So it was nice to see somebody doing that. Which, Ben and Richie really couldn't. They're not married that we know of. It doesn't seem like it, so fine, whatever. No thing on them. But
exactly.
I like Bill and Audra.
All right, thank you for joining us, and join us or message us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at floatsdownhere. Email us at floatsdownhere@gmail.com. You can always find all of our information at thepodcastthat.com. Make sure you rate and subscribe us on iTunes. It goes a long way to helping us. And we will see you next week as we go into
Derry, the first interlude.
You'll float too.
Stay imaginary.
Thanks.